Last year, I signed up with a service called Stitch Fix. I filled out a questionnaire and monthly received clothing that fits my body, my style, and my budget. As someone that hates shopping so much, it's been a wonder. After receiving your monthly delivery, you fill out another questionnaire, this time about whether or not the pieces worked for you. And I noticed an interesting question. They asked if the collection of items I received felt custom to me. I loved that question. What they were really asking was, did it feel like the items I received were specifically for me? Or did I feel like they were just a random collection of items sent to just anyone? I like this question so much because I could also use it to evaluate my homeschool. Is my homeschool custom to my family, my individual students? Or could they receive the same experience in a traditional classroom setting that doesn't take their individual needs or preferences into account? Is my homeschool custom enough that it honors the individuality of each of my students and the uniqueness of our family? Is yours? I'm Leslie Maddox, an engineer turned homeschool mom, and I want to help you customize your homeschool. In the last video, I talked about the importance of learning our kids' learning preferences. That alone takes us much of the way to a custom education for our students. But what we're going to talk about in this video takes us the rest of the way. In this video, we're talking about the 3 Ds: difficulties, dislikes, and delights. You're going to want to do this because it'll help you to allocate both your time and your money. The Homeschool Planning Decoded method of planning and organizing your homeschool encourages you to put extra dollars and time toward your kids' difficulties and delights while spending less time and money on areas that are not especially difficult or enjoyable for your kids. Now let's tackle each of the 3 Ds one by one. If you want to follow along with a worksheet, the Homeschool Planning Decoded Starter Kit contains a worksheet to help you document your kids' 3 Ds. Okay, on to the first D, difficulties. Difficulties are areas and subjects specific to your child that are especially challenging for them. So it could be health challenges, a learning disability, possibly behavioral problems. Anything that requires extra consideration in your schedule, your budget, or your emotions. When it comes to schoolwork, a difficulty could be a subject that is especially challenging for your child. Do you remember that line from Jim Carrey's How the Grinch Stole Christmas? Hate, 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 double hate, loathe entirely. These would be subjects in the loathe entirely category for your kid. You should dig a little deeper when it comes to subject-specific difficulties, though. Ask yourself, why does my child hate this subject so much? Or why is my child struggling in this subject? For example, if a child learning to read is really struggling and avoids it, are they comfortable with all of their letter sounds? Maybe are they having trouble with their vision? I actually had that happen in our homeschool. One of my kids had trouble progressing in reading. He was an early reader, so I really didn't worry about it at first, but it continued to be a problem for him. He finally told me that he was having trouble seeing the words. I didn't even think to ask him that. Turned out he needed glasses, and he really needed glasses. So I encourage you to pay attention to your kids' difficulties. If they're having trouble with age-appropriate learning, don't just ignore it and assume that it'll all work out in the end. Kids do develop at their own pace and not according to a timetable, but still pay attention. And don't dismiss difficulties with generalities like, oh, boys just aren't as good at reading as girls are, or girls aren't good at math. Oh my gosh, I hate that so much. As I found with my child's need for glasses, you may be able to do something to address these challenges. It might not be as easy as getting a prescription for glasses. I know this from experience as well. One of my kids had challenging behavioral issues that we hoped would work themselves out, and we waited too long for them to work themselves out. We finally sought help and discovered that he's on the autism spectrum. So while we're thrilled to be able to help him now that we're armed with the knowledge that we need to help him. I really wish that we hadn't waited and hoped for the best. Okay, let's move on to the second D in the 3Ds, dislikes. Back to our Grinch reference, these are the items in the hate rather than loathe category. These are activities and subjects in which your child lacks enjoyment. Maybe they avoid them. Maybe they don't bring out the best in your kid. But they're not particularly challenging for your child. They just really don't like those activities. I have a kid with math in the dislike category. He's actually pretty good at math and on track for his age, but every day he says he hates math. And hey man, I get it. There are a lot of things that I'd rather not do on the regular, like laundry and dishes come to mind. But are they particularly challenging to me? No. Do I have a disability that causes laundry and dishes to be a struggle for me? No. Do I have to beat my laundry on a rock by a river because I don't have a washing machine? Thankfully, no. So laundry and dishes are a dislike for me, not a struggle. Same for my son and math. Dislikes are worth noting though, so that we can avoid them if possible and avoid some homeschool drama. So if you have a kid that doesn't like crafts, for crying out loud, don't choose the craft-heavy history curriculum. If your kid is a picky eater, don't incorporate foods from all around the world in your social studies. But if your kid doesn't like math, recognize that learning math will be a character-building activity for them and make it as enjoyable as you can. I do that for my son by letting him decorate his math worksheets with Minecraft and Pokemon stickers. And sometimes we use other tools to make it a little more fun. So let's just use some common sense in this area. Another reason to be aware of dislikes is because they can become stumbling blocks and transition to difficulties. I had that experience with one of my kids in art. He absolutely hated art, which didn't bother me because I did too when I was a kid. I vividly remember walking into my art class when I was in elementary school and thinking, wow, what a waste of time. Really didn't like it. So at first, I didn't stress about my son's hatred for anything art related. And then came the day that I asked him to make just an extremely simple sketch for a little history project we were doing in Minecraft. He could not do it. Like, he absolutely refused. My son's dislike of art had become a stumbling block for him. So the next school year, I incorporated a drawing activity into his schoolwork on Fridays. Art instruction isn't required in our state, and he hated it, but I knew he needed it. And over time, he stopped complaining and being bothered by it. Now, he doesn't mind sketching at all. And with his brothers, he has even created his own little comic book. He's no Rembrandt, but drawing isn't a stumbling block for him anymore, and he even has fun with it. So, identifying dislikes can prepare you for future challenges and even help you avoid them. Okay, let's move on to the third of the 3Ds, delights, my favorite. Delights are the things that bring a smile to your kids' faces. They spark attentiveness. They bring joy and happiness. These are the things that your kids say they absolutely love to do. When identifying your kids' delights, think about their favorites. Maybe their favorite TV shows, their favorite movies or toys or games, their favorite activities, even their favorite colors. What do they find delightful in their environment? Music, their own workspace, a place to display their work. What are their favorite subjects, and why is that subject a favorite? Really dig into the delights, because incorporating delights into their dislikes and areas of difficulty can help smooth the way when your kids are struggling or resistant to learning. For example, I have a student that when it came to reading, loathed it entirely. He was diagnosed with a language disorder, so that came into play. But not focusing on reading competency wasn't an option. So I've had to put a lot of work into finding books that capture his attention. Sometimes I miss the mark, but I'm thrilled to report that I've finally figured out what he likes in the way of books and have managed to delight him as well. Now that I've described the 3Ds, I'd like to share a few final thoughts about them. First of all, don't always avoid activities that fall into the difficulty or dislike category. Participating in an activity that they might not necessarily choose on their own could be a growth opportunity for them. And Who knows, they may change their minds. Kids can be fickle sometimes. Second, use delights to support difficult areas. Something as simple as a Minecraft sticker on a dreaded worksheet can smooth the way for learning that day. Third, don't think of the 3Ds as a throwaway step. Think of it as a way to show your kids that they are seen and loved. Because isn't that what we all want? In the next Homeschool Plan Decoded video, we'll continue to define your family's homeschool needs by looking at how to draft your academic year. Again, you can access all of the videos that walk you through the Homeschool Planning Decoded method of planning and organizing your homeschool right now at the link below. And happy planning!